The early 90s, what a time to be in. Video gaming was some considered its peak. We had the great Game Boy games pumping out like Kirby's Dream and Mario Land 2, Link's Awakening, and some of the best NES games were coming out. Definitely visually, but we had games like Mario 3, Kirby's Adventure, Mega Man 3, 4, 5, and 6, with 5 actually being my favorite in the series. Although I haven't actually played the games after 5, I've only played the original classic 5, but it's still my favorite of those 5, even more than like Mega Man 2. But what I'm here to talk about is the 16-bit wars, roughly from 1990 or 91 to 1995, with this being Nintendo's second main home console and being Sega's first real successful console in North America at least. So today, we're here to have a battle to the death. Which is better, and well, mostly, which one is better, at least to me. Alright, so the general consensus is that the SNES is actually better than the Genesis in several ways. Although I feel like it's weaker in a lot of ways too. But I'll get to that later. Anyways, let's just think of the names. The Super Nintendo Entertainment System emphasizes that it's similar to the NES, but well, super, and more advanced, but it was still kind of the era of video gaming, had gotten more popular by parents, but they were still considered toys. The Sega Genesis. According to Google, the word Genesis means the origin of mode or formation of something, which I think describes the system pretty well, I guess. I don't know, I think it's just a cooler name. Honestly, both of these systems have good names, but have better names with other systems for their respective companies. Off topic, but I've always hated the respected or respectfully thing when talking about something. So like saying each of these respectfully, it's like, I've never really seen the point. Like, I get this point, it just kind of sounds stupid. I don't know why. I've just never liked it. So those were the names of the two consoles, Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. And honestly, of the fourth best book of all time, the dictionary, they could have chose some better picks. Now, advertising. How does that fare? Now keep in mind, I don't want this to be boring like some YouTubers or something. But let's see how the advertising fares between the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. You know, Sega does what Nintendo don't.
Genesis does
16-bit arcade graphics.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis does
16-bit sports action.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Genesis does.
They copied me! Looks like I got a lawsuit here. Yes, Sega had the greatest ad campaign ever made. Maybe aside from that time, 13107. Anyways, everyone knows this by now. It was pretty decent at making the Genesis seem really cool. The controllers. Now, this isn't tough, maybe for a singular person, but as a society, well, oh boy, this is heated. Now, what do I personally like more? The Genesis, no contest. I've always liked when controllers are big and have big buttons, so that your hands aren't like making out, and I don't know, the Genesis big clicky buttons just feel nicer to me. One thing the Super Nintendo controller is better at is the shoulder buttons. This was like the first controller to really innovate this, and it's obviously still around to this day. Alright, cartridges. Which ones are better? I would also have to go with the Genesis, even if a bit basic. Like, what are these? Alright, let's just talk about some games. The main ones and ones I'll probably never cover again. Super Castlevania 4, the only game in this series I've played, so yeah, no competition between Bloodlines and 4. First though, Super Castlevania 4 is a stupid name. They couldn't settle on whether it should be called Castlevania 4 or Super Castlevania. You know, the Super Nintendo's weird naming scheme. Yeah, people don't really talk about it as much, but it's mostly the blank 64 games a lot. But the SNES's games have Super in front of their titles, like a bunch of them. Even ones like Donkey Kong Country. Yeah, it's actually called Super Donkey Kong in Japan. Interesting. But anyways, SC4, the abbreviation. Although probably no one has ever called it that before. Anyways, the game is sort of a remake of the first game on NES, but it's 16-bit and sort of new ideas. I haven't gone super far, so I don't fully know what the game has to entail. The controls are butter smooth. Like, this is probably the most responsive Super Nintendo game I've ever played. Alright, I got this. Oh, I did it! I did it! I actually beat the first level of Castlevania 4! This game has great music, like seriously, the ba 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 da ba da ba da ba ba da 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 da. And the whip is fun to use too. Now, me and probably everyone gets some satisfaction out of just swinging that whip around. You know, up and down, forward. You're literally able to swing on it. Like, the whip is so cool. You hear that? That means it's getting pretty spooky. The bosses aren't that bad either. Like, take for example the first boss, which objectively kinda sucks, but it hasn't minded me. The platforming really kicks in level 2, and honestly, I'd be fine if the entire game was like this. Sure, like the enemies and the bosses and stuff, and the Castlevania pizzazz, but of this all, well, it wouldn't be that bad if it was just the platformer. Be a solid, more slow platformer. I think it'd be good still. You know, it's kind of interesting. Just when I start playing Castlevania 4, it turns spooky. Don't know why. Oh, frick, it's Dracula.
That was your big mistake. By playing Super Castlevania 4, you let me out.
Well, guess what? I got the Sega gun. The Justifier.
Oh, wait, please no.
Now, I'm not actually gonna shoot you. You're actually kind of cool.
Wait, really?
Yeah, you're Dracula. I don't care. You seem cool. You seem like just a cool guy. You seem like a good friend. Alright, well, I'm gonna go. You know, it's plugged in. I don't know. It doesn't work. There's this thing in the bottom. No clue what it does. The TV is on right now. Sonic 1 is playing. I don't know. There's some slight cuts in the wire, but nothing to really make it not work. There's a start button and a trigger, and that's literally it. I have no clue how it's supposed to work at all. Again, there is this section, this whole thing. I don't know. Maybe juice. That should be a good use. Maybe in here. Maybe that's what it's used for. Justifier, like juice. There's no way. Nah, I'm not trying that. I'm not trying that. To be fair, Sonic 1's not supposed to work with it, but the start button should at least do something. I don't know. Alright, let's talk boxes. The Super Nintendo had the, of course, cardboard boxes, whereas Sega had the plastic cases, until later on they became cheap and actually made them cardboard. But they're still used in games today. The plastic case was really innovative. And I've always liked the Genesis boxes, but they never really stood out to me as much as the Super Nintendo boxes. I do prefer this more vertical case compared to the SNES's horizontal box. Sometimes this aspect ratio makes games look really weird, like Toy Story for example. It just looks gross on the SNES's box. Which, speaking of, Toy Story on the Genesis, it's feels like a very old school type of game. It has more of a mission structure. Don't really like that. I'd rather just be a normal 2D platformer. But the graphics look nice. Music ain't horrible. Follows the movie decently. Overall, it's not the worst thing in the world. But out of the Toy Story game trilogy, it easily falls the weakest. Alright, so we got the names, controllers, ad campaign. I don't know, maybe the games. Yeah, let's talk about some exclusives though. I think, again, the Genesis wins out in this category. Especially because I love platformers, and the Genesis just does it right. There's Moonwalker, which is, as of right now, my most wanted game. There's Rise Star. It's fun and a great looking game. The Vector Man games, I have the second one right here, and while it's ridiculously hard to me, I still enjoy it, and it looks quirky and fun. SNES did have, though, Mario World, Yoshi's Island, the Donkey Kong Country trilogy, Super Metroid, some of the Kirby games, and the one I already talked about, Super Castlevania 4. It's difficult, but I love the Genesis platformers, and its library in general. I love the Genesis. It's my favorite console of all time. The 16-bit era is my favorite generation, the 4th generation. It's, I think, the best gaming has ever been. And I know that sounds like I'm a lunatic, but I love these systems so much. And I think Dracula would also agree.